The Philadelphia Flyers are set to face the Carolina Hurricanes in the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs starting tonight. The Philadelphia Flyers have a couple of things that they've announced recently that we need to go over ahead of this series, which is going to be a tough one. Today, we're going to talk about the potential for some lineup changes ahead of game one. We're going to talk about what the lines look like after those lineup changes. And overall, we're going to talk about the Flyers' main goals and what they need to be worrying about from the Carolina Hurricanes for the entirety of this series to maximize their potential. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, if you have been enjoying this channel and these videos and me as a whole, please make sure that you subscribe and like these videos. 95% of the people who watch these videos are not subscribed. It's totally free. It helps you stay up to date with Flyers, helps you stay up to date with me, and overall it helps the channel out a ton. Without further ado, we're going to move right into it. Ladies and gentlemen, the Philadelphia Flyers play the Carolina Hurricanes tonight at 8 p.m. Now, we don't have the schedule for the rest of the second round, courtesy of Gary Bateman in the NHL. However, we can talk about Game 1. Game 1 is going to be a big one, all right? The Flyers are up against a former player of theirs in Rod Brind'Amour behind the bench with the Hurricanes. And the Hurricanes are certainly a different team from the Penguins, where the Penguins were practically 1 foot already in their retirement home and were on a last gasp run to try and get Crosby and co. their final cup. The Hurricanes are a well-oiled machine that has been incredibly scary for the rest of the NHL this entire season. There's a reason that they were number one in the Metro. And the Flyers currently are facing a little bit of a dilemma as there's been a little bit of discourse about Owen Tippett as of late. So Owen Tippett is a very, very strong contributor to the Philadelphia Flyers offense. He's one of those guys that's been really good for the Flyers on the regular season. He's been performing fairly well in the postseason so far. However, Tippett was on the out on the ice late at the morning skate earlier today, and usually being out past when all the regulars get off is a sign of that player being scratched. This is kind of how we knew Michkov was getting scratched ahead of Game 5 against Pittsburgh, how we knew that Garnet Hathaway, was getting scratched ahead of Game 6 versus Pittsburgh. And while this could just be a maintenance thing since Tippett didn't go to a different optional practice in between now and the end of the first round, there are some strong suspicions, especially given that it's been confirmed that Owen Tippett has been working through an injury as of late, that he very well may not be in the lineup for Game 1. However, it's incredibly close, and it's basically been confirmed that it's a game time decision for him. Now, that being said, what do we need to look out for provided Owen Tippett is out of the lineup? Well, Owen Tippett is a strong offensive player. He's also fairly good defensively, but where he really shines is his offense and his ability to play an East Coast or like an East-West style of offense. And the Flyers are going to need to adapt to not having a very big piece of their puzzle in the lineup if he is out. So Alex Bump will end up being the guy that'll take his place. Now, Bump will be up on the first line with Zegras and Martone, Barcia back with Dvorak and Michkov, Tyson Forster with Noah Cates and Travis Konecny, and then Luke Glendening, Sean Couturier, and Garnet Hathaway down on the bottom line once again together. This is all provided that Tippett doesn't play. If Tippett plays, I would expect to see something a little bit closer to what we saw in Game 6 versus Pittsburgh. Maybe like an alternate version of the Game 1 versus Pittsburgh lineup, except maybe with Bump in for Forster. I haven't seen much about what the lines will look like, provided that Tippett is in tonight. However, one can only assume that they'll go back to something that they've played with a bunch and something that they've been comfortable with. I'm on the team of go back to the Game 6 versus Pittsburgh lineup, maybe swap Luke Glendening and Garnet Hathaway around a little bit, try and get Hathaway back in, considering he sat after Game 6. But that being said, we're going to move past the Owen Tippett stuff. We're going to move into next what the Flyers have to worry about with the Hurricanes overall. The Hurricanes are in a very different spot than the Flyers are this playoffs. The Flyers had one of the lowest possible chances. I think the only team with worse chances to make the second round than us was the Oilers. Or not Oilers, was the Kings. Sorry, I'm thinking of the Oilers playing the Kings. And the Hurricanes were basically, they would have been a major disappointment if they did not make the second round. That being said, the Flyers have defied expectations all year. There's a reason that they've been giving out shirts with 3.8% printed on the sleeves. All right, the Flyers aren't supposed to be in the playoffs in the first place. I said it a couple days ago. The Flyers are playing with house money right here. And so these percentages, this 0.3% chance that the Flyers are making the second round, means nothing for us. It is just another number for us to overcome. It is another set of expectations, and it's another underdog status placed upon the Flyers. This team is incredibly strong. They most certainly have the capabilities to keep these games close, if not win them. Like I was saying the other day, every game against Carolina this season that the Flyers played was a 1-goal game and went to overtime. All right? These guys are not pushovers. They're not going to get pushed around. They're not going to just keel over and die. All right? The Flyers can hang with the Hurricanes, but they need to focus on a couple things. Number one, the Hurricanes, and Tocchett said it himself in one of the questions that he was asked at a presser earlier today. The Hurricanes are a well-oiled machine. They're a very, very deep team. They had 7 different 20-goal scorers this year. That is not something that the Flyers can say themselves. All right, you have to play every single line that the Hurricanes throw out there like it is a line that is dangerous to score. They have no defense first line, all right? Every line that they have can go out there and can shoot the puck well and can score the puck well, all right? This Hurricanes team, I know this is like the 5th time I've said it, but they're a well-oiled machine. They are a team that, like, in all fairness, it makes sense why people are taking them over the Flyers coming out of this series, because they're an incredibly strong team. They have forward depth out the wazoo. They have defenders that can shoot, defenders that can lock down every player on the ice if they need to. Their goaltending's been phenomenal. They've been one of the only teams in the playoffs to have a goaltender that is around the same level as Dan Vladar. Granted, Frederik Andersen played against an arguably worse offense than Dan Vladar did, with the Senators, in my opinion, being a worse offense than the Penguins. However, Frederik Andersen and Dan Vladar have been 2 of the best goaltenders in the entirety of the playoffs so far, and so the Flyers are not going to be able to just simply kick back and let Dan Vladar make 42 saves and then pot one in overtime. All right, because this team is, if we play like we did against the Penguins in games 4 and 5, the Hurricanes might hang 42 on our heads. All right, that's what you have to worry about. So we have to focus on maintaining the defense, but also maintaining a well-working offense. The Hurricanes are one of those teams that, if up to April 26th, which is the most recent version of this graphic that I have, the Hurricanes were not exactly the highest on the defensive rankings. All right, this is expected goals. This is expected goals against, i.e., this is goals that are projected to be scored against them based on how they played. The Flyers, this number is incredibly low. The Hurricanes, it's a much, much worse situation than the Flyers, with over a goal and almost a goal and a half more per game allowed than the Flyers. This is something we need to take advantage of. The Hurricanes are a very deep team. It's going to be very hard to whittle them down and tire them out like the Flyers were trying to do with the Penguins towards the end of that series. However, it is most certainly possible, and as you get later into those games, the Hurricanes are going to chip down a little bit. They're going to... I'm not going to tell you that they're going to fall apart, because I don't think that fall apart is the right answer, or is the right statement to tell you. I don't know what's going on right now. Is the right statement to tell you. But the more that you push this Hurricanes team, and the more that you put pressure on them, and the more shots that you get off, the more that they will eventually get pushed back, the more chips on their armor that you're going to put in. All right, that's the simplest way to put it. So the Flyers need to make sure, number one, that they're playing as good a defense as they possibly can without sacrificing the offense. Not sacrificing the offense is number 2. Number 3, I talked about this a couple of days ago, but there were some projected changes to the power play lines, most specifically that second power play line, which, if you remember watching Game 6 or any of the games against the Penguins this year, you know that second power play line was not very good at all. The Flyers' third goal for this game is to score on the power play. I don't care if they lose 8-1 and score on the power play. If they go 1 for 1, 1 for 2 in power play chances, I'm happy. Because the Flyers' power play is not very good right now, and a huge part of their success against Carolina is going to be getting the power play back online and trying to force the power play into being an actual scoring opportunity for them. Goal number 4, and this is even bigger than the power plays one, stop with the stupid penalties. I've been saying it the entire playoffs, and I will continue to say it until probably next season. The Flyers have a bad habit of taking dumb penalties. All right? Throwback to Matvei Michkov punching somebody in the head with his glove on for no reason. Guys taking slashing penalties for no reason. People getting into scrums after the whistle and throwing uppercuts. All right? while it's entertaining to watch and entertaining to see the team kind of scuff around, guys throw each other around a little bit, taking dumb penalties is not going to be nearly as forgiven as it was in the Penguins series against this Carolina team. This Carolina team is a lot better on the power play than the Penguins were. All right? There's not going to be an 0 for 5, 0 for 6 showing in the first period on the power play from the Hurricanes like there was from the Penguins ahead of I think it was game 2, game 3. That's not going to happen. The Hurricanes are not a team that you're going to let get on the power play 5 times in a period and they're not going to score once. Dan Vladar is amazing. We've played some really good defense. That's just not happening. All right? So the Flyers need to cut the dumb penalties out and they need to play 5-on-5 hockey. If not 5-on-4 and they're on the power play. That's what you need to worry about. Finally, just some general mindset things. Rick Tocchett and Denver Barcia got asked about how they were feeling moving into this playoff series, and Barcia was one of the ones that was a little bit more out there about the fact that they've felt like they've been in the playoffs for the last 2 months, ever since that big 3.8% after the Olympic break came around, and these guys talking about how they've been feeling like they've been in the playoff mode ever since then, how every game has felt like a playoff game, and that they need to just keep moving forward with that same mindset and keep maintaining what they're doing, keep doing the same things that they've been doing, and try and just get as good as they can and play as well as possible night in and night out. Another thing that's been asked fairly recently with the discourse surrounding the playoffs, and we're going to go back to those line change opportunities earlier, Tocchett got asked again about the Michkov situation, because naturally it's Philadelphia. We can't go more than one day without talking about him. Tocchett got asked about his thoughts on Michkov's game and his most importantly, his game-winning assist on Cam York's goal in Game 6 against the Penguins, and Toc was really supportive. Toc talked about how it's been a building block, that he's been trying to rebuild his game, and that he knows that it's going to take more than just this for Michkov to get back to being the 60-point-in-a-season guy that he was in the regular season in the postseason, especially against these more difficult postseason game plans where you're able to play against the same guy 7 times and really put a magnifying glass to him. But he's been showing confidence in Michkov, and I think we are starting to get past the idea of Tocchett hates Michkov and that he has something against Russian guys, and that I really do think that Tocchett had the best intentions possible for the benching in Game 5, and I think that that's done nothing but positives for Michkov and his overall abilities so far, is, hey, he's got more points since the benching than he did before. Once again, as per usual, everybody, if there was anything that I said today that you disagreed with, anything that you thought I got incredibly right, anything that you thought that I didn't talk about at all that I should have, please make sure that you let me know in the comments. I'll stick around after this video is posted to reply to some people, give my thoughts on some of your guys' takes. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, the Philadelphia Flyers play at 8 p.m. tonight versus the Carolina Hurricanes. I will see all of you there. Ladies and gentlemen, have a good rest of your night, and go Flyers.